Happy Wine Wednesday, everyone. Hope you're doing fabulous. Hope your tanks are amazing. And I have to hit start broadcast. Okay, so I'm trying something new. So we may very well be on Instagram also. So if you see us on Instagram, give us a comment or a wave. And if you haven't attended a Wine Wednesday on YouTube or Facebook before, basically we get together with seahorse keepers, breeders, lovers, and we have different guest speakers and open chats. I usually have a really cute wine glass, kids. I usually have a really cute wine glass, but I broke it. So I'm using a mason jar. I'm so classy, I know. Anyhow, so we just get together and chat. It's typically seahorse related. So if you're interested in seahorses, make sure you subscribe to one of the channels. And we do also, you should always watch Wine Wednesday because sometimes, like today, we're talking about more of a broad subject. So the topic tonight was curing versus cycling, and we're going to throw in some pre-cycling information too. But anyhow, I have SaltyReef with me, and we talked about curing a few weeks ago, and frankly, I got all confused about the purposes and the difference and why you would cure versus like keep pre-cycled media. And so we'll jump into all of that. But Salty, welcome.
Hello.
And Salty doesn't have a face today, but we have his visual, his very cool big S. I should have changed it. Anyhow, Salty, and then the rest of the gang that's usually with us on Wine Wednesday is in the background waiting to jump in. I just thought I'd chat with Salty, ask him a couple quick questions first. Because he is the curing master, and every time I have problems, I always call him. So I thought I'd bring him on and have him chat. But yeah, I think I already said Happy Wine Wednesday. But Happy Wine Wednesday. I'm sipping on Chardonnay. Grab your glass. Come right back and join us to chat. Okay, so Salty, start me off. I know you heard all of the questions we asked the other week, but what exactly is curing? What's the purpose, and how do you do it?
Okay, so the purpose of curing is actually to get all the excess die off that's in the dry rock out before you put it in your tank. Because what happens is when you say you aquascape your tank, you fill it up, and you get ready to start your cycle. Well, in a few weeks, you end up with
So sorry. Go ahead. That was me.
You end up with the algae and what everyone calls the ugly phase. Well, the way to skip that is to take your rock and basically, in a quick sense, is soak it, water change, and get that dye off to come out before you even put it in your tank.
Mm-hmm. And because the die off, like if you buy a live rock or if you have dry rock sitting around, basically it could be full of phosphates or just stuff that's going to lead to phosphates or lead to nuisance algae, right? I mean, that's the basic idea.
Exactly.
Okay. And go ahead. Oh, so sorry. Turn that off. Turn the phone off. Go ahead. Sorry.
So the process of curing actually takes all that excess phosphates out of your rock before you even start your cycle. So in essence, you can actually skip the ugly phase. Like the ugly phase does not have to happen, like some people say. If you do your prevention first before you cycle, you can actually skip that.
And so when we're curing rock, I think you said you just get a bucket, you put the rock in, it's full of water, and then how long do you have to let it sit, and what do you do to it while it's sitting to make sure it?
Okay, I can explain the way I do it.
Yes.
The way I do it, it actually takes roughly 6 to 8 weeks to fully cure rock. That also depends on the type of rock, because there's all kind of different rock now. And then now with the man-made stuff, the curing process can go a lot faster. The way I do it, if you use rock that was previously used in a reef tank or was wild harvested and dried out, I use the bleach method. So basically I use, I've always had larger tanks, so I have to use 2 of the 30-gallon brute cans, and I'll pack that full of the rock. My first step, though, is I'll take the rock, I'll spread it out in the driveway or the yard or something like that, and then I'll spray it out with the hose to try to get rid of as much loose material as you possibly can.
Mm-hmm.
And then I'll take the brute cans This step I usually do with just tap water. I'll take and fill it with the rock, and then fill it with the water. And then what I'll do is I'll add 1 gallon of scent-free bleach per 10 gallons of water.
Okay.
And then I'll add some sort of circulation pump, whether it's an actual pump, a wave maker, whatever. And I'll let that sit for 1 week. And then after 1 week, I'll do a 50% water change. Now, the water that goes back in, you actually put in bleach water. So same process, 1 gallon bleach per 10 gallons of water. And I'll let that sit for another week. And then what I'll do is I'll empty all the water out of the tote, and I'll rinse off the rock again. And I'll let the rock actually sit out in the sun or out in the heat, and I'll actually let it dry out for roughly about 5 to 7 days. And then while that's drying out, I'll clean out the container and make sure, try to get as much bleach water out. I'll do it a couple times, rinse it, wash it out really good. And then I'll once the rock is dry again, I'll take the rock and the water. Now at this point, I use RODI water. So you take your rock, put it back in the tote, fill it with the RODI water, and then I add prime to the water to get rid of the chlorine from the bleach. Now, keep in mind, the whole time I'm doing this, I'm keeping the containers covered, so there's no light source getting in whatsoever. And that's a big key, is just to keep it completely dark. And then now that I'm filling it up with RODI water, you put the clean pump or wave maker, whatever you're using to stir it around. Add the prime. I'll let that go for a week, roughly. Then I'll do a 50% water change with RODI water. I'll let that go for 1 more week. Then after that, I'll drain everything out, clean it, rinse the rock again, put everything back in, and then I'll actually fill it with salt water this time. And then now at this point, I have the heater in it. I'm running it at 78 degrees with RODI salt water. And then I'll let that go for a week, roughly. And then I'll do a water change of about 50%. And then I'll go another couple days. And then I'll do a test. I'll do a phosphate test. And depending on the result of the phosphate test, if you have 0 phosphates at this point, then you're ready to proceed. If you have, phosphates, then I would do another water change and go again.
Gotcha.
And then
go ahead.
And then after that, if you get to the point where you actually have 0 phosphates, that's when you're actually ready to start your actual cycle. That's when the rock is cured.
And darn it. And before we jump into cycling, because I want you to cover how you do that too, but I just want to make sure that I had it right. You said 1 gallon of unscented bleach per 10 gallons of water, right? And that's after spraying out the rock, you put it in the bucket, and the 1 gallon per 10 gallon of water, is that RODI at that point, right?
For the bleach, I use tap water.
Okay, tap water. Okay. And then you said how long before you do the 50% water change?
A week.
1 week, 50% water change. You add back bleach water, same condition, right?
Yes.
And then another week, and then you remove all the water and add RODI, or?
Yeah. After the second week, you actually take everything out and let the rock dry out.
Okay.
And clean out the container and clean all your pumps and everything. And then add in RODI water with the prime to get rid of the chlorine from the bleach.
Got it. Okay. And then after I followed the rest, and I'll try to type this up when we're done in the comments. But then, so once you've got it to the point of cycling, please proceed with how you cycle the tank, you personally, or cycle the rock, excuse me.
Okay, well, there's a couple questions you have to ask yourself before you even start your cycle.
Please.
This is my experience. The most important question is how you want to aquascape your tank. If you're going to dry scape or if you're going to scape with the tank wet, because it gives you a couple different options. If you're going to dry scape, then obviously you're going to cycle the tank in the tank. If you're going to wet scape, you can actually start your cycle in those brute trash cans before you even think about, you don't even have to have your tank at this point. You can start your actual cycle. But if you're going to dry scape, where you add your different scapes and your glues and all that kind of stuff, you're going to end up having die off, which is going to start the process all over again. So there's no point.
Right.
You'll just cycle it in your tank. The other thing before you do your cycle is if you're going to run sand or bare bottom, because obviously bare bottom tanks can take longer to establish, and
Right.
I highly recommend adding more media to your sump if you have a sump. The other question would be dry sand versus live sand, because that can affect the length of the cycle and how much bacteria you actually have to add.
Gotcha.
And then the method that you want to use, because there's a couple different methods. You can do the raw shrimp method. I don't know if you've ever used that, where you just take a piece of raw shrimp and let it degrade.
We don't usually use that for reasons for seahorse people, but I'll let Cheryl talk about that once she jumps in. But it is a method. Go ahead.
Yeah, I'm just talking in general.
Yes.
And then, along with that method goes like the ghost feeding of like the brine shrimp or mysis shrimp. Now, there's a couple different issues with that I know of for the reefing side, and I mean, it would probably go with the phosphate issues that come with that.
Mm-hmm.
And then obviously you could do the damsel or the hardy fish. Don't really recommend that.
Right.
But the best that I've had experience with in the fastest cycle is the bottled bacteria and the pure ammonia.
Okay.
So that's the one I use.
And we do have a separate Wine Wednesday where Dan really went into detail about cycling with ammonia. But Salty, can you just give us a quick overview? And we're close to bringing in the gang. Go ahead, Salty.
Okay. So a quick overview on the cycle is you're going to want to get an ammonia source, which it could be, I recommend the bottled ammonia and the bottled bacteria. And you're going to want to follow the directions on whatever bacteria you actually use, because I know different ones have different steps and different cycles. But basically, you want your ammonia to spike and come down, your nitrite to go up and down, your nitrates to go up, spike, do your water change, and then you're basically cycled at that point. Quick overview.
Yep, gotcha. It was really quick. Again, guys, there's a lot more details in the Wine Wednesday. It's literally titled "Cycling," I think, and Dan goes through a whole
Dan
presentation.
did a great job.
Yeah, but no, I mean it's important. And actually, I'm going to go ahead. I know there's still more to ask you, Salty, but I'm gonna go ahead and let Cheryl and Holly in, because I wanted to let them get in here before we talk about pre-cycling. So welcome, Cheryl. Welcome, Holly. And first off, do you have any questions for him about curing?
I do, because I kind of got lost along the way. So at the point where you start using the RODI water to eliminate the chlorine with prime, how long does that process last, and then the next steps after that?
Usually about 2 weeks.
Okay. And with a 50% water change after each week?
Yes.
Okay. And then what comes after that?
Then is when I add the actual salt water and the heater, just to break down the rest of it, if there is any.
And you're done when phosphates are 0, or how do you know when it's good?
Yes,
good to go?
When your phosphates are 0.
Okay.
And in the meantime, then, do water change every week until that happens, to keep going with the 50%?
Yes.
Okay.
It usually only takes roughly about 2 weeks.
Well, I'm certainly glad that you are sharing this with us, because every tank that I've ever done, I've used dry rock, And if it's real dry rock, like never been used before, it takes forever to cycle. And of course, I'm doing bare bottom. But then if I've used, previously live rock that's been dried out or live rock, I have problems every single time with nuisance algae. And I've learned ways to deal with it, but certainly be nice to never go through the problem. And so, anyways, I'm just thankful. And let's see, what was what did I say I was going to ask Cheryl when I let her in? I said I was going to ask her
About
something.
the cycling with shrimp.
Oh yeah, Cheryl, why don't we advise cycling with dead shrimp? Like just throwing a shrimp in.
You have no control over how much ammonia you're adding. When you use pure ammonia, you can regulate how much is going into the tank and you can monitor it. When you throw in dead shrimp, you have no idea where you're going to be at tomorrow.
Right. And with seahorses, since seahorses eat more often, well, I don't know, some reef tanks feed like seahorse tanks, but point being, when you cycle with ammonia, you can literally determine, okay, if I'm feeding this many fish or this many seahorses this much food, then I need my ammonia, my cycle to be able to handle the ammonia of this much. So like typically 1 to 2 ppm. Whereas if you just throw a shrimp in, that will work, but you may very well have, number one, you might have ammonia or nitrite problems because you didn't cycle to the extent that the tank needs, based on feeding and bioload. And then number two, I think I've heard people have problems with like the shrimp causing problems, like polluting the water. Is that?
Yeah,
Yeah.
you end up with a lot of phosphate issues.
Right. And then Ray, in the comments, Ray, you can jump in if you want, but if you're busy, it's cool. Anyways, Ray said the shrimp method is also very slow. You have to let it decay for it to produce the ammonia. Of course, true. So definitely good points all around. We definitely recommend the ammonia cycle. And again, go watch that Wine Wednesday. I'll try to link it when we're done. But Dan did a great job walking you through it with an actual presentation on, why and how and et cetera. So, and so then with cycling or after, the one thing that we haven't discussed is pre-cycling media. And Salty has basically talked about rock because in reef tanks, you're going to use rock. And in seahorse tanks, in my seahorse tanks, I have rock in every single one of them. But Cheryl, you don't, right? You don't keep rock, right?
Actually, what I do is I actually use sumps and I make extra wide baffles and I fill that full of sterilized rubble rock when I start a cycle.
Gotcha.
And I mean, this is stuff I've had around for years. And I haul it outside, bleach it, rinse it, bleach it again, thoroughly sterilize it each time between each use. And it doesn't cost me a whole lot.
And I was going to ask that too, Salty, when you were talking about the bleaching prior. That's something, again, I have never done. Of course, I do. The reason this is kind of confusing for me is when you're talking about a seahorse tank and you're talking about like K1 media, that, of course, if I reused it, I would bleach it and go through the whole process of pre-cycling it, which we'll talk about in a second. But I had never done it with live rock or dry rock. So is there any kind of difference? Like Cheryl, when you bleach your media or your rubble rock, do you use 1 gallon per 10 gallon as Salty does, or do you?
I basically go with a 1 to 10. And normally what I'll do is let it sit out there for several days, oftentimes a week, empty it, bleach it again a second time, rinse it again, and then set it out to dry. But K1 is completely different because K1 doesn't function like rock. K1 is once you clean it, it's clean. You don't have to worry about hidden nooks and crannies like you do with rock.
Right. Oh, and that's well, actually, I thought of 2 questions because Ray just said I've been using the same reef rock for, in fact, I can show his question. I forgot. He said, I've been using the same reef rock for all setups since 1994. You're
Yeah.
showing your age, right? But I think he's saying he doesn't clean it or bleach it in between. And so is there, like, Salty, this question's for you. When you're talking about rock, is this something you just do when you initially set up a tank with rock you've never had, or you've just recently purchased, or do you do this every time you reset up a tank?
I do it every time I reset up a tank.
I
And-
do the same thing. Nothing's going in.
Especially
ahead.
with the Seahorse tank, because I don't want any hitchhikers. I don't want any. I want to know that my rock is clean, sterile, and good to go with no pests whatsoever. So I would do it every tank that I set up.
Well, in Ray's case, just to be clear, oops, I hit the wrong thing. Sorry, guys. In Ray's case, just to be clear, his tanks all were Seahorse tanks. So, you know, I understand what you're saying coming from a reef tank. To do a Seahorse tank, you would want to definitely get rid of any of that. But that was my actually other question, Salty, is one of the things that I did not understand about curing. I know we're backtracking a bit, but one of the things I didn't understand is I thought for some reason that curing the rock got rid of pests too, but it doesn't, does it?
Well, I mean, if you're doing the bleach aspect, then
Right.
yeah, I would say it's going to get rid of all your pests too.
But the old, I'm sorry, I said it wrong. I meant like the old fashioned curing method where you just throw the rock in water and do water changes for months. That would not.
No.
You have to bleach. Okay.
Yeah. Especially if you're going especially from a reef tank to a Seahorse tank, because you never know what you're going to bring with it.
Right. And Ray says he rinses really well, but and lets it completely dry. But yeah, I think I mean, and again, Ray, that's what I've done too in the past. So there's, you know, it's worked for me. But I bet you if I used either one of their methods, I'm pointing the wrong way probably. Yeah, wrong way. Anyways, then I wouldn't have so many problems with nuisance algae, because I do, you know, every time. The only tank I didn't have problems with nuisance algae in that I reused rock from a previous Seahorse tank that I did let dry out, of course, because you can get into all sorts of problems if you're talking about different species of seahorses, that the rocks everything in each tank is different. Like they have their own nets, they have their own stuff, their systems. Nothing's attached just because cross contamination. But I've dried rock out and used it in a new tank. And the only time I did not have algae problems with that is when I was using either no light or very low lighting. So that does have something to say about it. Oh, and Ray said it was all reef tanks until he started in 2003, 2004. Well, you're a risk taker, buddy, and you must have had some clean rock. But anyways, okay, so then when we're talking about we've got the tank cycled or whatnot. Now with seahorses, Salty, people like to keep pre-cycled media. Have you ever kept your media pre-cycled?
Yeah, I actually keep pre-cycled media all the time.
Yeah.
Okay, and what's your process for that?
Usually I just add it to the sump of whatever system I have and keep it going. And then
So go ahead.
if I'm going to use it on another tank, I'll add it to the sump. Now it's reef tanks. I would never use pre-cycled media that's in a reef tank to go to a Seahorse tank.
Right, of course. But I mean, that's kind of pretty much like what Cheryl's talking about. I know a lot of people who do it that way. And I do that too. If I know if I'm getting ready to set up a tank, or even if I have like pre-cycled K1, which I'll let Cheryl talk about in a second. But even if I have pre-cycled K1 media, I'll still like add some, you know, dried clean rock or other media. I think Holly uses media balls or whatever. I'll put that in the sump of a different Seahorse tank, and just in case I need it for emergency. Now that's going against my cross-contamination theory, but it's just for in case of emergency, because to have that excess, you can't have too much media, is my personal opinion. You can't have too much, and it's there in case you need it for emergency. But Cheryl, how do you pre-cycle media?
Well, basically, first of all, I keep it what I call a rock tank.
Mm-hmm.
And the rock tank is basically sterilized rock It's been bleached, been rinsed, been dried multiple times. Then it goes into a tank, and I cycle it with pure ammonia. And I can use that as a backup in case of an emergency because there's nothing in there. It's not hard to clear the ammonia if you need to. And it's also, if you want to use bacteria, you could have that rock ready. And I mean, I can cycle rock and put it in a tank in 6 days.
Right.
But it's one of those things where I call it my safety valve. I always keep it extra on hand.
And so it's just a tank. How do you feed it though? I mean, I always say
Add
feed.
pure ammonia.
Wrong word. Okay, so the tank has no critters in it, no fish, and you just add ammonia. Do you have a measured amount of ammonia, or do you just give it a splash? Or
Well, I'm real bad because I just kind of dump a little in,
Yep.
and then I check my ammonia levels, and I want it to be at least 2 parts per million, and I want to check it every day to make sure it's clearing that.
Mm-hmm.
And it comes in handy if suddenly you end up with seahorses you hadn't planned on.
Right. Yep.
And that's primarily what I use it for. The other thing is when I cycle a tank, it's like I've got something I'm working on right now. And I've got several 5-gallon buckets full of rock and rubble rock sitting out in my front yard that are full of bleach right now.
Nice.
And until I get finished building the sump that I'm working on, they can stay out there full of chlorine as far as I'm concerned because I'm not in a hurry for it. So I tend to take it to the extreme in terms of trying to clean everything thoroughly first. The other thing is a lot of times somebody will break down a tank or run into a problem with the tank, but they think in terms of, well, I got to clean the filter media, but they don't think in terms of cleaning the tank and all the tubing and everything else, all the plumbing that goes into them. And if you don't thoroughly sterilize the plumbing at the same time you do the rock, you're behind the 8 ball.
Yep. Well, and back to pre-cycling real quick. I personally use rock and K1 media and different things in different tanks. But with the K1 media, again, I keep saying it, but go back to the Wine Wednesday where Dan presented cycling because he really goes into detail about that too. And for my K1 pre-cycled media, I literally have a 5-gallon bucket with K1. I did have to put a power head in there to keep it spinning, constantly moving. K1's a media that has to move and bump against each other. That's the whole way it works. And but I cycled it, and then I do like Cheryl. I cheat too. You can figure out, and in the other Wine Wednesday, Dan talks about how you can figure out exactly how much ammonia you need to add each week. But I just kind of dump some in. But then when I'm getting ready to use it, then I will add exactly 2 ppm, what I need to add to get to 2 ppm or 1 ppm, depending on your preference, and then make sure it converts within 24 hours to 0. And that way I know it's usable and it's up to the task of handling the bioload. Uh-oh, somebody's at the door. Anyways.
Yeah, one thing to keep in mind with K1 media too, when you first start cycling it, you're going to get if you use like API test kits, you're going to get stuff that makes no sense in terms of the color that you're getting. It does not get along well with test kits early on, and you need to be aware of that because it's going to give you all kinds of readings.
So Holly just asked, and Salty, I know you probably can't stay with us the whole time we chat, but I want to get a few more questions to you. But Holly just asked what K1 is. So Cheryl, can you explain what K1 is while I quickly grab K1 to show her?
Well, the thing is, K1 media is designed for aerobic metabolism. So what its primary function is to convert nitrites to nitrates, and then so on. The thing is, because it is an aerobic metabolism, the problem with K1 is it takes a while to cycle. Most people think you can just throw it in. It doesn't work that way. It actually has to build up the bacterial coat to be able to do the conversions that are necessary. I don't know if that
And
answers.
Well, they look
Sure.
like little tiny plastic cube things too. I've seen them. I don't have any, but they're if you use bio balls or anything like that, it's similar to that. They're just a lot tinier and they have a lot of surface area for the size
Yeah.
that they are. Yep, and there they are.
Yes, and this is actually the mini type. And every time I ask Cheryl to explain something, she always goes way over our heads. So sorry. But what she was saying was, go ahead, Salty.
I was gonna say too about you brought up the bio balls versus the K1.
Yeah.
I think the K1 is less of a detritus trap than the actual bio balls
Mhm.
that I've
Yep.
experienced.
And you can kind of see, I don't know if you can see on camera, but some of them are white and some of them are discolored because I haven't bleached this yet. And that's one of the ways. Now, it doesn't have to be discolored for it to work, but basically, so, okay, here's my quick definition, Holly. Okay, so you take, for instance, in my 40-gallon all-in-one, I made my own little K1 reactor. So in other words, it's a 1 liter bottle that you flip upside down. You got to drill holes in the top or in the sides so that the water comes back out. You fill it three-fourths maybe of the way with K1. And I pre-cycle the media, so it's already cycled because it won't work until it's cycled. So that's kind of where the pre-cycling comes in. So I have 5-gallon bucket with K1. I use ammonia, and I don't even use bacteria in the bucket. I just use ammonia to cycle the K1 media. And then when I'm ready to use it, you fill the 1 liter with, put the holes. I can show you mine. I'll show a picture, but put holes in the top or the sides to let the water back out. I personally put a hole. I should have grabbed the bottle, but in the 1 liter bottle, and I would have used a 2 liter if I had a sump, but this is an all-in-one tank. Anyways, where the lip comes, where it comes into the opening, right above it, I put a hole and stick an airline in, right? So the airline's right there. And usually I would use a sponge, but in this all-in-one, it ended up being too tall. So I ended up using mesh. And I just cut a piece of mesh and stuffed it in the bottom so that the K1 won't fall out, right? So you've got this 1 liter K1 in it, airline, holes in the top, and you've got mesh at the bottom. So the water's coming in here, circling the K1, and then coming out back into the tank. And it works really well.
The biggest problem I've seen with the K1 is a lot of people go in and just use it as like a flow through, like you would use bio pellets or something like that, instead of aerating it.
Oh,
and
yeah.
so the point of the K1 is that you need to have it aerated. And
Yep.
if you don't, it's not going to function properly.
Now, I'm not going to give you the scientific behind this. Maybe Salty knows, but basically, so as it's tumbling, it's a tumbling thing. And as it's tumbling, they bump against each other. So I think that's part of the reason that the detritus doesn't, add up.
Yeah.
When they get filled with good bacteria, nitrifying bacteria, they do turn yellowish and look gunky.
Yeah.
But because they're constantly knocking into each other, they kind of bump that stuff off, and so it stays clear. Would that be a good non-scientific way to say it, Salty?
Yeah.
You think?
The thing is with K1 is it is self-cleaning also because you've got it in perpetual motion. So bacteria doesn't build up on it particularly. But you have to aerate it and you have to have a flow-through system on it or it's not going to function properly. And
Correct.
I see that a lot.
And I do want to say, just before we continue, that a lot of people can't make it to Wine Wednesday at 8 p.m. on Wednesday. So I see that we have a tremendous amount of people who watch this after, like days later. If you watch this and you're like, wait a minute, that curing thing didn't make sense to me, or why do you do this, or what's the purpose of that? If you type a comment in the comments on the YouTube, or even on the Facebook, I will come back and answer it because I get notified, and I always, especially on YouTube, I'm better on YouTube, but I can't figure out if we're even live on Instagram, but I'll learn that too. But we'll always come back and answer your questions if we don't cover something while we're live. But yeah, anyways. And if you hear something you like, don't forget there's always Super Chat to support us. But anyways, moving forward. Salty, what else have we not covered about this topic that needs to be covered? I know there's other questions, but
As far as curing,
All of it.
I mean, we've covered a lot of it, but I do want to say, like the 6 to 8 week process of curing, it might sound like, oh man, that's going to take a really long time. Is it really worth it? Well, if anyone's actually experienced the algae outbreaks that can last 6 to 8 months, 6 to 8 weeks is nothing compared to 6 to 8 months where you can't grow coral, you can't like have a nice looking tank, and you're fighting with algae. So the 6 to 8 weeks is really short term compared to the long term benefits that you actually get from curing your rock.
Absolutely.
Now, I did want to say too, now the new man-made rock that you can get, like Bulk Reef Supply sells their version of it. I don't think like the bleaching is absolutely necessary for that. So that could only be like a 2 to 3 week cure. What I'm talking about is the stuff that was harvested from the ocean, or the stuff that was previously used that you bought off Craigslist or Facebook. That stuff you're definitely going to want to bleach and start over.
Well, and for seahorse folks, I'm really liking, I know Ray doesn't do it, but I'm liking the bleaching idea just because I'm just thinking, trying it out. I know bacteria can't live once it's dried out, but who knows what can. I mean, Aptasia, I know can make it on dry rock. I know it can because it just shows up out of nowhere. Go ahead, Cheryl.
Well, I was going to say, it's just like when you're setting up a tank, a seahorse tank, you obviously don't want any pests in there of any kind. And the best thing you can do when setting up a seahorse tank is make sure everything that's going into that tank has been sterilized. And that involves not only all your filtration, your macro, anything you add to the tank. And that's where a lot of people get into trouble, is they try to take shortcuts. And that causes them problems down the road.
I was just waving because Ray said he has to go. I guess
Hi, Ray.
Yeah. Well, bye, Ray is what we meant. Anyhow.
Hi.
Okay, so yeah, but no, good point, Salty, because there are, and that goes across the board. We talk about the best way to do things and the most efficient way to do things and the reasons that they should be done, but there's always other ways, like algae burns, clean macros. I don't worry as much about quarantining those as I would, something that I got from the ocean or from another person. So definitely there's clean options that might not need as much, but if next time I set up a tank, I'm going to use the curing and bleaching method, because in fact, I mean, couldn't you do that period and then like do a rock tank like what Cheryl said? Like what Cheryl does? Like Salty, you said you do keep recycled media sometimes. So could I not cure some rock or media right now and have it for when and if I do need to set up another tank?
Only if you
Absolutely.
feed it.
Mm-hmm.
Right, and feeding it. I don't think I asked you, Salty. Maybe I did, and hey, Chris, I see you. With the feeding it, I always say people jump me all the time. You're not really feeding it, but anyways, do you use precise amounts of ammonia, like adding each week when you're keeping pre-cycled media, or do you just wing it?
Honestly, I just wing it.
Okay.
I mean, most of my pre-cycled media is in the sump of one of my tanks, so it's getting fed. It's getting cycled through my tank. Not,
Right.
I've never done just keeping just a rock tank. I mean, I've cycled rock in like a tote, but as far as feeding in ammonia, I kind of just wing it.
Yeah.
Gotcha. And then just test it the day before you're going to use it.
Exactly. Like you said before, get it up to the 2 ppm. Test it in 24 hours, make sure it's actually doing its job, and then go from there.
Gotcha. Well, good. I mean, I'm the one that was confused, so I felt like this was an important topic to chat about, and I really appreciate you coming in, Salty. I know you're busy. I know you have a very busy week next week, so congrats.
Yes.
But anyways, any other questions that you guys can think of or in the comments about this topic, and then we can move forward to just open chat.
I did want to say one thing
Yes,
about
please.
the
Please.
bottled bacteria method.
Yes, because we haven't discussed that, and I do use that method too. Please, Salty, speak.
So one of the things that I've seen a lot, like on the different live streams that I'm on, is people that take a bottle of bacteria, dump the whole bottle in their tank, add fish the next day, and then wonder where they screwed up.
No.
So, well, yeah, basically what I was going to say is you can't just dump the whole bottle in your tank and think that your tank's instantly cycled. Like a lot of, some of the bottles say add fish immediately, instantly, fish safe. Well, it can be fish safe, but it doesn't mean that your tank is actually cycled.
Right.
So basically follow the directions, like actually follow the directions. It'll save you a lot of headache down the road.
Yeah, and on the previous Wine Wednesday where we covered cycling, I think I attached a link to, like, there's different bottle bacteria. And then another thing I will say is you got to make sure it's the right species. Holly and I talked about this once because she had gotten some bacteria from the store, and I don't know it all for sure, but I feel like maybe it was one of those that say they cycle the tank, but really it's the sludge kind. Again, guys, I'm not scientific.
Yeah,
But
it
there's
wasn't
nitro-
that, but it was for maintenance, not for starting a tank. So it
Right.
adds some
Okay.
bacteria, but it's not for when you first add bacteria. It's to keep a cycle going that's already started, is what it
Right.
was.
For
But
instance,
they're misleading. The bottles are misleading. You have to read the fine print really to figure stuff out.
absolutely, because there are some that they're like more for cleaning up a tank. Like it's all good bacteria, but it's not nitrifying. And then I think in Holly's case, Salty, what is the C-Chem actual nitrifying bacteria? What's that called?
It's Aqua Vitro seed.
Yeah.
It's made
That's
by
fine.
Seachem, but it's their like Aqua Vitro brand. It's the seed. And that's
Right.
what I use.
And for an example, like Aqua Vitro seed would cycle the tank, but stability would not. Stability is for maintenance, right?
Yeah.
No,
So,
Yep.
stability's not going to cycle it like you'd like.
right.
No.
But I was just giving an example. And I personally, I went all the way around to get to this point, but I like Dr. Tim's products. His one and only has worked for me every time. And he has an actual fact sheet, which I will try to link to this video too when we're done. That literally goes through, he describes, add this much bacteria on this day, add this much ammonia. Don't do this for a day, add ammonia, add bacteria. I mean, he goes through it step by step, and it's it's a week process, but a week's a lot shorter than, 6 weeks. Does everybody here use bacteria to cycle? Does anybody go back the old fashioned way? Everybody uses ammonia and bacteria. Nobody does it any other way. Guess not. All right.
I've done it with the shrimp method. It just
Yeah.
takes forever.
Yeah, a long time ago in the old days.
Yeah, like
Yeah.
17 years ago.
Yeah. When I first started with saltwater many years ago, like 20 years ago or something. Yeah.
And when you did use the shrimp method, Salty, had you already cured the rock for that tank? Or was it before you started?
No, that was before I knew what curing was. And
Okay.
It was my first tank setup. I listened to the LFS and I did it that way. And that was the ugliest tank that I ever had. And I almost left the hobby over it.
Right.
It was nothing but algae and just,
Yeah.
it was horrible.
Absolutely. And one other thing, when I was at the MACNA, most recent MACNA conference, I was talking with some of the bigwigs about curing, trying to understand it. You just put it in simple terms. I appreciate you, Salty. But at the time, I was like, I kind of always thought that it was for removing pests, but it doesn't. How would it, right? Aside from lights out. And one of the suggestions that I think it was, I think it was Jason, but I can't remember his last name. Anyways, he works for a company, and he was like, one thing he tried because he didn't want to do the bleach. So like, if you're afraid of bleach, you shouldn't be, because Prime will take care of it. But if you're afraid of bleach and you want to cure and you want the pests to try to be gone, he suggested using like, oh gosh, I'm doing so great with my words tonight. Like the, what is it called, you guys? It's the, oh my gosh, this is going to make me crazy. It's mesh, but plastic. The grating, caging. Do you know what I'm talking about, Salty? Like you would use to separate a tank. Oh man, that's going to drive me crazy. Anyways, basically making a ledge where the rock sits up here, and like he was just thinking maybe the pests would end up on the bottom. So it was more detailed than that. I'll try to find it in the Macna talk, but
Like the light diffuser,
no,
like
I
the egg
can't.
crate type thing.
Egg crate. That was what I was thinking. Yes,
Oh,
egg
yeah.
crate. Duh. But there was more to it. I'll try to find that portion of the video and share it. But he just talked about, maybe an idea of how to get rid of pests if you didn't want to use bleach. But
You know what I'm
and
using all my egg crate for? I'm
what?
building boxes around my wave makers and covering them so the seahorses can't get near the impellers. And they work really well because they don't inhibit the flows. That's where my egg crate is anymore.
Yes, I remember you shared that on one of our Wine Wednesdays where it's egg crate around the wave maker. Pretty
It
genius.
works, but that
Not pretty, but whatever.
That's
actually
what my
Capel,
local fish store uses that too
yeah.
for their wave makers. They're all enclosed in egg crate boxes, I've noticed.
Capel told me I should have used black, but I already had all the white.
Yeah. I mean, who cares?
But it's one of those things where even egg crate, there's been reports of it leaching problems.
Really?
Yeah.
So, have you noticed that?
I'm thinking that they were reporting that some of the reapers I know were reporting increases in phosphates.
From the egg crate? Wow. Well, I need to know more about that one because I use egg crate all the time in my tanks. And Chris Carey said, I wish shops would just sell cycled media, would cut out so many issues. Yeah, but that'd be a lot of work for them to keep it cycled, right? I mean, you couldn't just, right? I mean, they'd
Well,
have
if
to
they
do
had a spot for it, and I mean, if there was a market for it and, they had the space, I mean, I could see that being a good seller.
Yeah. The problem is, it's like a friend of mine who I've worked with for quite some time. I explained to him how to cycle the media, a fishless cycle, setting everything up sterile, etc. First thing he does is he goes into a fish store to buy some rock. Well, they're selling him live rock, and then they're telling him you can't do a fishless cycle. And he believes them, so he buys some fish, etc., etc. By the time he gets his tank set up, he's got flatworms, he's got bristleworms, he's got aptasia. The tank was a disaster, and he lost his seahorses. And it was really sad because they were giving him misinformation on how to set it up.
Oh, geez.
I was just going to say the same thing. Like with the LFSs carrying pre-cycled media, what's it going to bring with it?
Right.
Yeah, I do.
Are they really keeping their tanks pristine?
Yeah.
Have you guys ever used, okay, I know that we've kept Salty for an hour now. I hope he stays as long as he can, but I know he has a life and is busy. So if you have any more questions for him, please ask them in the comment section quickly so that we can get to him before he has to go. But I'm opening the chat to open chat. So Holly, if you want to talk about pouch stuff, and Cheryl, if you want to talk about your babies. But last thing, have any of you guys ever used the pre-mixed salt water at your LFS?
I have.
You have?
I used to buy that, not recently, but many years ago. I had a smaller tank. It was only 30 gallons. And I used to buy big jugs of pre-mixed salt water for my water changes and so on, because it was economical back then. We're talking 13, 15 years ago.
Right,
and
right.
I haven't done it since, but I used to use it.
And Salty, you said you do too?
Yeah, I'm like the 5-gallon box that you can buy at like Petco. Yeah, I've used
that. Yeah, that's pretty much what I was using.
And Cheryl says no way, no how. Why?
I've never bought. I don't trust anybody's
you're not.
water other than my own. And my
Cheryl
water,
is our.
yeah, I test my water for everything before I use it on a tank.
Salty, did you ever test it?
Yep. After about
And it
the
was.
third or fourth week of using it, and
Yeah.
I was wondering why
I
I was
check the
like,
pH, I check this SG, I check for ammonia. Uh, I I don't use it until I have thoroughly checked it, and I check it daily.
Yeah, but Cheryl, you're so super careful. I mean, that's why you're such a success with seahorses and babies. But dang, Salty, you said you checked it and what happened?
the salinity was like through the roof. It was like
Oh.
1.028, and the phosphates were extremely high.
Yeah.
I don't
Well,
know if I
that's
got
what
a bad batch, but it was bad.
Well, that's what I was thinking. If you bottle mixed salt water with no aeration, what would you expect to happen, right? That just doesn't make sense to me. But I mean, it worked for you, Holly, right?
Yeah, I tested mine and I never had any problems with it. The salinity was higher than I use now for seahorses, but I think it was like 1.025. So it was still in
Well,
their range, but
yeah.
it was consistent. It was always that. It always tested what it was. So
Yeah. Well, the
So
difference
would
is,
the
keep in mind, I'm on a private well. And depending on how much rain we've had, depending on the time of year, the weather out, the ambient temperature, my water, not so much with the RODI coming in, but in terms of some of the extraneous problems with it, I've just gotten in the habit of testing it continuously for that reason.
well, well, Cheryl, you're not wrong. You're not wrong. You're right. Just saying, um, I wish I was that studious and dedicated and made sure that everything was right. But just out of curiosity,
see, at the
with
time I lived in an apartment, so I had a small
right,
space and a 30-gallon tank. So it was a lot different than the circumstances I have now.
Yeah.
So
sure.
it was convenient and easy to deal with.
Well, and I'm not knocking the method because apparently it does work. Like Salty's the only one that had a bad batch or whatnot, and if you know to test for at least salinity, there's nothing wrong with that method. I was just curious because when I saw it, I was like, oh, because at the time I didn't have RODI, and so, or RODI, however you say it. Anyways, so I was having to buy distilled, mix it in a bucket. I had a
Mhm.
big root tub. It was a pain in the butt. And so I just thought, well, that's a really good idea. But in my mind, I thought water, salt, mixed salt water in a container with no aeration. I mean, I guess that okay, here's where my thought process goes. Like when I saw it, I was thinking if there's no aeration, then it's not going to be good. For now that I'm thinking as you're talking, if there's nothing live in there aside from the salt and the water, then it shouldn't go bad. And now the contained part makes sense because as I've talked about in previous weeks, I've had a lot of trouble mixing salt water lately because my pump gets slimy. And the water, if you leave it mixing for more than, I used to leave water mixing for quite a while, because I've used it on different tanks throughout the week. Now I have to clean and sanitize my pump, my bucket, my everything before I make fresh salt water because within a couple days, it's got slimy stuff, which we've decided and determined is bacteria. Like if you're sitting water out, even though it's got moving parts, it's getting slimy and stuff. So maybe capping it makes sense. I know I just went on a total rant here, but
Do
I
you
just
leave the
my
pump
brain.
running in your saltwater buckets then
Well,
all the time?
if there's still water in there, I'm not anymore. Now I'm using all the water and cleaning the pump and drying it out. But
See, I
before,
don't do that. I make my salt water. I usually have 2 5-gallon buckets that I use for top offs, and I don't aerate it at all. I just leave it. I cover it. They're uncovered, but I don't do any aeration.
I aerate
so
all
when
mine.
So you're saying, I'm sorry, I was reading the Seahorse Corner's comment, sorry. But you said you don't leave the pump in. You don't have any aeration.
No, I don't use
Okay.
a pump at all when I make
Oh,
water.
that's right.
Honestly,
That's right.
I never
Okay.
have. So I don't. I don't know if it's better or any different. I don't think I've had any problems not doing it that way. So I don't know the difference really.
Well, the thing is,
Right.
too, you're working with much smaller volumes of water. I have two large brutes. One is a 46
Mhm.
gallon,
Yeah.
Right.
and that when I fill that sucker up, uh, I definitely am monitoring every inch of it when I'm doing
Mhm.
it. And when do salt mix again, I mix up 30 plus gallons at a time,
Yeah.
which is that's very different than doing some 5
Five
gallon.
5
gallon
gallon.
bucket.
Right.
Yeah, because all mine's 5 gallon buckets is what I
Yeah,
use. And I might use a lot of them, like when I'm getting ready for a water change, but
right.
it's all 5 gallons each container.
Right. And actually, what you're saying makes perfect sense because one of the things that I realized is that I used to keep, like when I said, I used to keep water for a week, and just have the
Mhm.
pump going and I'd use the water in different tanks after mixed and everything was fine. Now I am using a 5 gallon bucket, but I'm using the same pump. And I have noticed that it gets hotter. The water gets warm, like it's too much power in this bucket. So maybe that's why I keep getting the slime and the mess and I've never figured it out. I've just learned to clean in between.
Well,
But
yeah. When you run a pump in a bucket like that, it is definitely going to increase the temperature. And
yeah,
as you increase the temperature, you're going to increase the potential for other problems.
yep. No, it makes sense. I need to get a smaller pump or go back to the big brute tub. I mean, it was nice having all the water made, so maybe I'll go back to that. Salty, I have an off this subject topic question for you, and then you guys can chat about whatever you want. But so in the 40, this is way off left field, guys, but I want to ask him before he has to go. So in the 40-gallon all-in-one, right? Everything worked great. Well, not great. You've known my problems, but it was working, and I figured some things out with all of your guys' help and Dylan and everybody. And but recently, I started noticing that one of the returns or outputs or whatever has started to spit out bubbles, right? And so I tried to figure it out, and at first, from the back chambers, by the way. So at first, I thought, and it is the pump that's sitting next to the chamber that has the K1 media. So at first I thought maybe, the spinning motion is creating some sort of bubbles, that come over the chamber. But I switched them, and then that side was the one spitting out these bubbles, right? And I know that bubbles don't cause gas bubble disease, but it still bugs me. It makes the tank not pretty. My pictures suck. And so I took the pump apart, and I think that what happened is that one of the, well, here's my two thoughts. Either I think that the plastic attachment that attaches the pump to the hose that
Mhm.
brings it up to the return, either that's like not tight enough or something, or I did take the pump apart, and I do take them apart every time I do a water change. And I realized that in this one pump, okay, I'm not technical, guys, but I take it apart, so I unscrew the twirly thing, pull that off,
The
the lid.
impeller.
No, the lid, and then I pull out the impeller, and there's a stick in the middle, right? And it usually has two little black caps on each
Yeah.
end of the stick. And I think that the black cap on one end is missing. I mean, it is missing. Could that cause it to be spitting out bubbles? It still works. It's just, my question is, why is this dang pump spitting out bubbles? Because I don't like it.
I think yes. I'll tell you. I had there was a crack, a tiny crack in an intake, plastic intake on one of my hang-on back filters a few weeks ago that I was using, like on the fry tank or hospital tank. I had a little hang-on back filter, and it wasn't working right. And what it was there was a piece that had a tiny crack, so it was sucking wrong, you could say. So sounds like something like that in your maybe a crack in something or missing something, like you said.
Well, the other thing is if you're missing basically the plastic cap on either end of that impeller, it's going to start drilling a hole through that pump because you're going to have metal or ceramic, depending on the type of pump, right? Basically, and it's going to wobble also because it's not going to be held in place. So you've got several things going on, potential problems there that could create some serious problems. It's like I figured it out the other day. I still have 15 Marineland utility pumps that go back over 15 years ago. They were made in Italy and come with a lifetime warranty. But the shaft for the impellers are all metal. So if one of those pumps decides to freeze up, the impeller's not going to stop. Is going to tear the pump apart, and I know that because of the way they were built. And if one of those things lost the black cap on either end, it's going to start drilling a hole right through that pump and probably short it out.
That actually makes sense to me because I'm picturing it probably wobbling around in the little hole and making it. And the part that's missing the black cap is the part that's on the capped part. But I'm showing. By the way, guys, I cannot figure out how to show the conversation that happens in the comments on the screen without doing it sentence by sentence. So as you see in the bottom of the screen, we might be talking about something else, but Chris and the Seahorse Corner are still having a great discussion about stores keeping cycled media. So I'm just going to keep showing that as we go. But yeah, so Salty, do you have any thoughts? Should I just get a new pump? Or if I get a new pump and it's still happening, why would an all-in-one act like this?
You could probably get a new impeller. That would be the least expensive, and see if it happens again. Usually when you get a problem like that, what's happened is you've either got an impeller that's starting to fail, or you're getting a buildup of debris in there that's inhibiting the impeller's movement.
That's not possible because I'm cleaning this every week when I do a water change.
Okay.
But SaltyReef, did you have any thoughts or?
Yeah, if you're missing that cap and there's vibration that could cause an air pocket, that's going to cause air bubbles. So like Cheryl said, you can get a new impeller. Depending on the pump, you can actually order the little cap. So I would try that before replacing the whole pump. But I think that's your problem.
Okay, so I'm going to get a new cap. And the reason that I'm even doubting this is because I know the cap wasn't missing forever. And it's been happening, actually it did just start happening. So you guys are probably right. All right, darn it.
You probably lost a cap when you were cleaning it at some point and didn't realize it. Mm-hmm. Would be my best.
I'm sure you're right.
Because they're they're small and they're easy to misplace. Yeah. You probably put it back together thinking you had it assembled correctly. And that would generate bubbles.
Yeah, I think you guys are right. Okay, so last off the wall topic, and then I'm going to Holly and Cheryl, and Salty, if you have to run, it's totally cool. But for you, SaltyReef, anything new in progress on your projects?
It's been pretty slow paced with everything I got going on and what's coming up next week. So right now it's kind of as I can work on it, I get it done, but I don't have a whole lot of time.
Sure. Do you care to share or not?
Well, we're having a baby next week. My wife's getting induced on Tuesday, so we're trying to get prepared for that and get the kids that I have now ready, and just life. So
absolutely,
I don't have a whole lot of time to work on like the side business yet, but it's coming.
Well, you guys, I messaged him and I was like, I totally forgot to post and tell people that you were coming this week. Do you want to wait till next week? And he was like, I'm having a baby, Kelly. I can't. And I was like, okay, that's more important.
Wait a minute. Whoa. He's not having the baby.
I say they both are having a baby. Okay, Cheryl.
Are you really?
But
are you really? Is your baby due next week?
Induced Tuesday.
Yep, induced on Tuesday at 6:30 in the morning.
Congratulations. Crossing my fingers. I'm sure everything will go wonderful for you.
Thank you.
Yes. And
I know that.
Yes, I'm excited for them. I can't wait. I can't wait for you guys.
Pictures are mandatory.
Yes, you got to come back
Absolutely.
and show us. And Salty, first of all, hi, fashion girl. We were talking about curing and cycling, but now we're to the open chat portion. So if you have any questions, lay them on us. And if not, go back and watch the beginning if you're interested in learning about curing. And because I was very interested, I didn't understand it. So, but Salty, do you want to really quickly tell us what, or if you don't, you can always say no. But do you want to tell us what your plan is for the side business that might be coming up soon? What you're doing?
Basically, I want to sell coral online, but I want to focus on more of the seahorse safe corals, possibly get into breeding seahorses, and then pre-quarantined and clean macroalgae is what I want to specialize
Oh,
in.
you got my business if you can pull that one off.
Be still my heart.
Yeah, I've been doing a ton of research and figuring it all out and how to do it all right. I've been researching for a long time, and I've done my fair share of trying and experimenting, and I think I've got it figured out. So it's just a matter of getting the time to do it.
So nobody gets to pressure him because he's having a baby. That counts for him.
Yeah.
But
The
we're
thing
all
is,
very excited because he's going to
yeah.
have pre-quarantined, clean coral macros. Seahorses.
I am OCD when it comes to macro because I've seen so much crap coming in on it.
Yeah.
And this is why I coral dip it, I freshwater dip it, and it goes into 6 months of quarantine. And sometimes it's nice to just be able to get some really nice, clean macro. And I don't mind paying for it, but I'm not going to pay for crap that's going to
Right.
create problems for my seahorses.
Exactly. And the other thing is what they're actually talking about in the chat as far as the pre-cycled media. I was looking into actually doing like pre-cycled rock, but like I explained to them, like the cost per square foot doesn't make sense to me. But as far as like K1 media, your smaller medias that I can do like a 55-gallon container full of it,
Yeah.
and actually offering that online, so you'd actually be able to buy pre-cycled media. The only thing I haven't quite figured out yet is how to ship it.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, the
K1
thing
would
is,
have to be
shipping
shipping.
right now is a disaster.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. Shipping right now. But yeah, and with just out of curiosity, since you brought up K1 again, has anybody in the audience or anywhere ever used K1 in an all-in-one tank, or in a tank without a sump? Because I did it in an angelfish tank, freshwater angelfish that I was breeding. I did it one with straws instead of K1, but in a 2-liter bottle in a tank, literally. And in this all-in-one, I've got it in a chamber, but I believe them that the pump's the problem with my bubbles, but I'm still like, I wonder if the spinning is causing something in the back. But you got a skimmer in the back. So anyways, I'm rambling.
Are you getting
But
an increase in temp on that? You should be getting an increase in temperature if you've lost part of the impeller.
not that I've noticed. And I do check the
I would
temp
think it would
all the
start
time.
heating up eventually.
Well, I will check that for sure. I've got one of those
Just
digital.
thinking out loud.
I'll look. But anyways, I wanted to say again, thank you, Salty, so much for coming. We are in the open chat portion. But if you do have to go, I know you got family, but we hope you stay. But I did want to say, any other questions about curing, just shoot them at us. We jump around on Wine Wednesday. It's wine, we talk about everything. But I wanted to make sure, Salty, have I let you answer everything and talk about everything you wanted to?
Salty, I want baby human fry pictures next week.
Okay.
I'm serious. I love baby pictures.
And don't forget, everyone, Salty is usually in the comments. Probably not next week, but usually in the comments, even when he can't come and talk to us live.
Yeah.
But I hope you stick around as long as you can to chat with us about other stuff. But I just wanted to thank you in case you do have to go. But I was going to say, Holly, tell us about your pouch stuff, but she walked away. When she comes back.
I'll be back in a minute. I'm just
okay.
Right.
She doesn't go very
worries.
far. Hey, she's the one. She does all her water in 5-gallon buckets. And I said, well, get a brute. She said, well, then I couldn't open my laundry. And then Scott couldn't get into his man cave. I said, you don't need to do laundry. And he can build a new door to get into his man cave. That was my suggestion.
Hey, Cheryl, the Fashion Girl 173, first of all, she commented about curing. She said, I've cured dry rock after acid washing them. So I want to ask Salty about that. But she also said, I want to thank Cheryl for always helping me with my seahorses, and also with my male seahorses. She was dealing with Popeye. So, and you helped her. So thank you for recognizing Cheryl, and thank you, Cheryl, for helping her. And I'll put that up. But real quick, Salty, what's acid washing? That's something I've never done. Would that replace bleach, or?
Yeah, that would replace the bleach. It's like citric acid.
Yeah.
They can actually, it etches the rock. I mean, it works a little bit better than bleach, I think, but it's kind of dangerous.
Okay.
It's something you don't want to handle normally.
No, and you definitely don't want to do it. Like if you can't do it outside or in like a garage or something, I wouldn't recommend it. But it's basically the same process as the bleach. I would think a little bit more water changes. I've never used it myself, just because kids, family. I don't want to use any acid, but I think it's the same process.
Yeah. Well, the fashion girl, you should jump in if you ever want to and tell us more about your process, because I've never used. I've heard Lori, whom rest in peace, Lori. She talked a lot about using acid washing for her rock, but it just seemed really like a lot to me. Salty, I know Cheryl, I know you want to say something, but Salty, real quick, if you know, would acid washing also get rid of pests? I mean, it kills everything, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, okay. Definitely.
Yeah.
And what were you going to say,
I don't think there's
Cheryl?
anything that can survive it.
Gotcha.
The problem with some of these chemicals is they are highly toxic. Different types of acids. You get it on your hands, you're going to burn the skin off of your hands. And it's not something the average person really should be dealing with. And when I say average person, it doesn't mean you don't know what you're doing. It means that you don't have a degree in organic chemistry to know what this stuff can do to you. And a lot of this stuff is not something you want to play around with unless you have a background working with some of these chemicals.
Or if you are going to do it, make sure you research, and I'm sure Fashion Girl knows or could share with us sometime, how to prepare. Like, make sure you have the right kind of stuff.
I'm the one that made the chemistry department solvent when I messed up on an experiment and literally burned a hole through a marble countertop. They evacuated the building. They brought in fire rescue. They opened all the vent hoods. And all it was a little quick few drops into the wrong place at the wrong time. I did it.
Scary. Okay. Yeah. Well, someday we'd love to have you come in and share your experience for sure. Just message me or Cheryl and we can get you the link. And Holly, I did want to make sure we have time because we're running pretty long. What's going on with you? What's going on with your seahorse?
So lots has happened. So I got my grow out tank back together. I got my 2 overflow boxes hooked up now. And so the sump is running to the grow out tank again.
Good.
And I'm getting used to them. They're a little different than having the built-in overflow boxes. They can be kind of touchy. Yeah. But I turn my pumps.
Wait. The ones now are touchy or the other ones?
Yeah, because they're hang on back. They're not built into the tank. So they're touchy. And what I say is they can move and stuff gets out of adjustment and then the water's not flowing right. But I'm getting used to how they work. They're not going to flood my house at this point. I've figured out that if one's not sucking down the water as fast. The other one naturally makes up for it somehow. I don't know the scientific process, but that's what seems to happen. And I turn my pump off a lot because I use the feed function. So I'm getting used to fine tuning them when I need to. Like sometimes to get the water flowing, it'll be like trickle. But if I run my finger along the edge of it, the water will start flowing.
Yeah, because
And
you've got
it's weird little
you've got to
things
build
like,
up. Yeah, you've got to build up there that's inhibiting the flow on that one.
yeah. So I do that now and then. I have to every now and then I have to suck air to start the siphoning again.
Yeah.
On one box or the other, but it's it's just a matter of getting used to it. So it's been going smoothly, and they seem to be. I did not have to adjust the speed on my pump at all, so they must be the same as the same flow as the overflow box that I did have, on the old tank. So that's going well.
Well, right, and I just to keep update anybody who wasn't here last week or the week before. The reason that you were kind of worried is because the overflow box that you bought was only rated 600 gallons, and this is a 75-gallon tank, so you wanted 1,500 gallons. And I think SaltyReef was one of the ones who proposed, and Chris Carey and whoever else proposed getting 2 of them, and so you're saying it is working the way you want it to.
Chris said get 2 of them, so I got 2 of them, and they work. They're both working, so I'm happy with them. And I'm getting used to them, but I figured out how they work and how to keep them going, and so they
take a little practice to get comfortable with them.
Mm-hmm. Now, one thing we have, so it's got 2 vinyl tubings because I have 2 overflow boxes, and they're going into one filter sock. It's 1-inch tubing, and so I have to jam them into the filter sock so that all the water is being filtered through the filter sock. And so we came up with, my husband said, well, we need to find a Y-shaped plumbing so that they feed into one pipe that goes to the filter sock.
Yep.
What I found out was that is a part that is nearly impossible to find. So I finally started getting close. I figured out there's a part like that they use on bilge pumps for boats, but they're always the wrong size.
Well, okay, Holly, I got a question for you.
I found one on YouTube, or not YouTube, but eBay, and got one.
What size filter socks are you using? Because 2
4-inch.
1-inch, huh?
They're 4-inch opening, yeah.
Okay, you can get an 8-inch opening, a 6 or an 8-inch. They're bigger, and you can easily fit 2 1-inch returns, outflows. Sorry, into the filter sock.
Yeah, but you know what, guys? I actually think that I like Holly's idea because Cheryl, in my case, because I recently changed my algae scrubber setup. I was cleaning it and I was doing some maintenance to it. And so I set it up just to have a filter sock, and it was overflowing within a day because the pressure was so strong, and it was just so I like Holly's idea of doing the Y
into one.
Yeah.
And because my sump, it's I have a kind of a fancy sump because it's the kind that has an actual slot that you slide the filter sock onto.
Yeah.
And I can't use it right now because I got to feed 2 tubes into it. If I had just one, that would work. But it took me 2 weeks to find the part. It's not a plumbing part. It doesn't exist in the real plumbing world. I ended up finding it on sites that did like industrial supplies and things. But you always had to order like 38 of them. It was all bulk. And
that's so crazy.
I found them on eBay.
That's so crazy to me because I know because I used one on my fry tubs. I
Yeah,
used a Y piece and I found it at Lowe's. So
yeah,
that's
yeah.
maybe it was
The
before. Hey,
teas are easy to find. We found teas everywhere, but everybody I talked to, they pretty much didn't exist until I went to, because we have lakes here and stuff. I went once I found it on, just
the
by
boating, right?
searching, I found it in marine supply places and learned what it was for. So then I went to a local marine place that repairs boats and stuff, and asked them about it. But the problem with finding it that way, I found out, is that one little piece is like $20 or $15 if you buy it for like a bilge pump hose. And so my husband said, screw that. If it's that much
Right.
money, I'll just, get out the heat gun and make one out of PVC parts.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
But
Well,
then finally I found one on eBay for $3 and I ordered two of them. And I'm like,
Nice.
finally.
I forget.
Okay, Cheryl's showing us. Go ahead.
Yeah. The thing is, I use the biggest filter socks I can get. And these things are 15 inches deep. I mean, they're huge, but they're not going to fit in yourself. And I keep forgetting I have to scale things differently when I'm trying to advise Holly because
So
these
mine are
filter
like this.
socks, well, how big are they?
This is a 4 inch. So this part's 4 inch.
Okay. This is,
A giant sock. Is that what you hang up for Christmas, Cheryl?
I wish. This is the bottom. This is the top.
So Cheryl, is your sump just deeper? Because
Yeah.
like if I tried to put that in my sump, it'd be laying almost
Yeah.
flat.
I think
My
that's
stumps are deep.
that's the size of the whole first chamber in my sock.
Yeah, exactly. I'm thinking, why can't you just pump it? And then it finally hits me. My filter socks are twice as big.
But I'm talking about the deepness because I'm just wondering because in my 65 gallon, and I do want to talk about what they're talking about in the comments in a second.
Hang on,
Very
let me
important.
measure. The depth of these is going to be 16 inches.
Right. So I've got a 40-gallon breeder as a sump on this tank. It would barely work.
Yeah.
So, but that could probably handle more pressure and wouldn't overflow and would work better.
Well, and these are 100 micron socks. So, I mean, they definitely are small. But the thing is, they do take up a huge amount of room.
Mm-hmm.
Gotcha. Well, we'll have to have a to be continued, and Holly can share how the Y piece works out for us.
Yeah, I
Real
think this
quick.
Y idea might really work well.
Yeah. So what it is, they're barbed Ys. And so the plan is I think 1 inch out. Yeah, so the hose is going to fit over it.
Yeah. See, what I
Over.
do with my nursery systems, and again, they're drilled, but they come into one chamber of a 29 gallon. And the first thing that they go into, both of the tubes from each tub, is into the filter sock. But I mean, these are big filter socks. They're, so
Mhm.
I
Saw that.
yeah, my
Well,
brain was not there when I started
You-
this.
No, it's still a good suggestion. And Holly, I think my not listening to you very well, I didn't realize what piece you were talking about. Now I see that wouldn't be at Lowe's. I'm talking about the little 1 inch to 1 inch Ys that connect, not become bigger. Real quick, I wanted to, before Salty has to go. So Chris Carey, I already showed these messages real quick, and we're going to jump back to Holly about what's going on with her seahorse after this. But Chris Carey, I'll show him again, said he likes to use vinegar to treat pests. It dissolves the calcium in the shells of Sporobus. Did I say it right? Worms, probably not. Is that the same as vermeted worms? I'm curious. I'm probably saying that wrong too. But anyways, it dissolves the calcium in the shells, and that's what he uses. And it's good for cleaning out pipe work and other places where manual removal isn't an option. But what I found, here's my question to Chris, who's in the audience, or Salty. I was using vinegar to clean pumps. I always use vinegar to clean pumps because, you know, it gets in there and it gets out the gunk. But then you think about vinegar dosing. And so I'm kind of confused on why you would use that instead of something else, because doesn't it promote the growth of something? Am I out in left field, Salty?
I'm not sure about that one.
Okay. All right. Sorry. I'm not either, obviously. But I thought about, we're cleaning with vinegar and it makes sense and it works. But then you dose with vinegar. So I just get lost in how that's working out as a cleaner if it's also used to grow. And okay, I'm going to stop because I sound like an idiot. All right. Anyways, they talked very much about how to use the vinegar and how to kill the snails. I know I'm not doing a very good job here, guys. I'm sorry. I'm trying to do two things at once. But she wanted to know if it affects the biofilter. That's a good question. Okay, so you don't do it in wise things.
That way. Well, one thing to keep in mind with vinegar is there's different concentrations. I can buy vinegar that will pretty much clean out any PVCs and anything else. Or I can buy the regular white vinegar you get at the grocery store that probably isn't going to do a whole heck of a lot. Well, I know it doesn't do a whole heck of a lot. So that's something to keep in mind, is the different strengths of vinegar.
All right, I'm trying to type vinegar dosing and what was my other question? Vinegar dosing, and it's Wine Wednesday, guys. It's wine. Does it affect biofilter? I'm saying it out loud and then I'm typing it. I'm great. Okay, so all right, since we aren't sure on that one, Miss Holly, do you want to share what's going on with your seahorse?
Oh, so I've got 3 seahorses in the hospital tank now.
Okay.
So thing 2, like during the time that I wasn't hooked to the sump, when I started the new grow out tank, so he had bubbles on his tail, like bacterial stuff, kind of like my Sandy had. I'm thinking gas bubble disease of some kind.
Yeah, and this is the mail that you got back from somebody that
Right.
Yeah. So he was getting worse, and he got to the point where he was having trouble swimming, like kind of like Sandy did. He got inflated, and I can't tell if it's actually his pouch. It might be parts of his body.
Yeah, his pouch looks awful swollen, though. That's my thought.
It is, and he has other parts of his body that are swollen as well. So I'm thinking it's throughout him. But also, I had another male that, and I think we talked about this like off screen a week or 2 ago. I had a male that during that time period, I came in one day and I literally thought he was dead.
Yeah.
I picked him up. He was laying on the floor and I thought he's dead. But when I picked him up and I picked him out of the tank, he started squirming. And so he's like, "I'm not dead, Mom." So I put him back, and miraculously, within the next couple days, he went like 2 days without eating. I thought I was going to lose him, but he started eating again and started acting well. But he has like a white patch along the side of his pouch, almost like a streak of white, that I'm thinking that's got to be bacterial of some kind thing. And then I had a female that acts kind of like my seahorse Dandy, but more extreme. Like she can't move right. Like she'll act like curled up, but she eats and swims that way. But she doesn't have any signs like that, like on her body of like bacterial infections or anything. She just can't swim right. So I had like enough Furan 2, which I hear, you can't get anymore. The FDA pulled it. So I had one thing of Furan 2 treatment left, and I have Diamox. And I was saving the Furan 2. I didn't want to use it unless I really, really needed it. So I also didn't feel like putting one seahorse alone in the hospital, because every time I've done that, they don't eat. It never goes well. So I thought, well, now I have 3 patients. So might as well use all the antibiotics, throw everything at them and see what happens. So I've got those 3 seahorses all together in a 10-gallon hospital tank. They're with Furan 2 and Diamox. And they've got voracious appetites. None of them, well, the one male, I think, not thing 2, but the other male, I think he might pull through. He's not really acting like he has too much wrong with him anymore. But they all have voracious appetites. Nobody's acting depressed like I've seen before in the hospital tank.
Well, seahorses are very social, and it definitely negatively impacts them when they're housed alone, particularly in a strange tank.
Mm-hmm.
That's something, but
yeah, so they've been eating. They're friendly. I'm feeding them because I had raised some brine shrimp that was supposed to be for fry that I didn't have. So they grew up. They're big enough for the big seahorses to eat them. So I've been enriching them with the vibrants and then cleaning them up and feeding them to these guys every day, along with 2 meals of frozen mysis, and they're eating every last.
One thing you can do with Furan 2 that most people don't realize is you can actually gut load adult brine shrimp with it to enhance basically it getting into their system.
And that's part of what I was thinking too, because I put them in with the seahorses and they're absorbing the medications too. Exactly. I figured
you can get it systemically into them, which is far superior to just having it in the water. As long as you enrich the food with them. And that's another thought. I'm just throwing it out to you. I'm trying.
Throwing out one for me, I would say also Furan 2, one of the things most people don't know is that if you use it in the water, it's affected by light. So like when I use it, it has to be in a dark tank. I usually make sure it's no light in the area. But I'm glad they're eating. And didn't your I feel badly. I have a pouch emphysema video coming that I just still haven't posted. But aren't you having trouble with that too?
Yeah, and his pouch won't open. And it was different, like, because I did that with Sandy and it worked.
Yeah.
But with this little guy, it's like his pouch won't open. Maybe because he's so swollen. I don't know.
That's exactly exactly. And Ray J has talked about exactly the same thing you're talking about when he had a male, that he literally could not get the pouch open. And I've experimented, so has Ray. When I mentioned using a catheter, an IV catheter, and injecting this liquid, what will happen is it's going to sound crazy, but when males' pouch starts to swell, all of a sudden they start having contractions. And you may very well, even with 1 or 2 cc's, be able to get him to release the air. There's air in his pouch, that I'm sure of. And it would help him if you could get him to stop floating best. Thing 2
Mhm.
Obviously went into a situation, was not in a clean tank.
Mhm.
Right.
And, I mean, it's not your fault,
Mhm.
Right.
but
But
it's
is
one
he
of those things
floating?
where if we
No,
can
he's
find a
not.
way,
He's not floating per se. He can float, but
okay,
he generally doesn't. He's hitching to stuff. He's swimming. It doesn't stop him from hunting or anything, but he's not swimming right. He's topsy turvy, so he's
yeah,
doing
yeah,
tumbling and stuff. But he has enough control to where he goes where he wants to go. He can hunt the
okay,
food. He hitches. Um, Sometimes, like a couple of times over the last few days, I found him floating. And then I went, and it was because he wanted to. Then left and swam down and hitched onto something. So he was just resting at that part. Now, when I tried to do the pouch evacuation today, I have a tiny like dropper thing that's about the size of the small head on a bobby pin, which is what I
okay,
had used to open Sandy's pouch last time. So it's very tiny. And what I did was I aimed that, I put it on his pouch opening and squirted it with the medication. And I got some to go in and out,
okay.
it cycled through, but no air came out and no, yeah,
So
I
he
don't
may be filling up with
really
fluid then. That
Yeah.
would,
kind of what I'm thinking because he doesn't feel like he has air. He's very firm. It's his pouch is hard. It's not the same as when Sandy had the issue.
okay, and
Yeah,
that
if the
was
pouch
that
is
would
hard, I agree.
coincide with the fluid in the tail
Hmm.
also that he has, which
Yeah, and
So,
see, I think it's more parts of his body than his tail.
yeah,
well, that I think you're on track completely, and that treating all three and throwing everything at him is your best bet. I think you're
And
smart.
I don't expect them to make it. Other than I think that one male has a chance. I think the other male
yeah,
has a chance.
You'd be
And
surprised
the
though.
girl, yeah, you never know. But I mean, his thing too is pretty bad. But he's got the greatest attitude. He's not bothered
Aw.
by it. He's not
yeah.
acting like he's dying. He's still eating, and they're all very friendly and paying attention still. They're alert. They're not acting like they're dying, but they're not right.
Yeah.
Right.
And the girl, I have no clue. The closest thing I could say is that it's very similar to Dandy's condition. It developed the same way, very slowly over time, but it's worse because he has some control and she's like bent most of the time. She
So
scoots around on the floor and eats, but she
Mm,
can't swim.
she's ataxic, in other words. She has loss of motor control.
Yes, I guess you'd say that. It's like I don't know if you've seen pictures of her, but she'll lay on the floor with her body like in a C shape like that,
Yeah,
with her
yeah,
tail up, her
mm,
her head curled around. And she
yeah.
makes her way around that way, and eats and stuff. But yeah, something's not right, and I've no clue what that is or what
Mm.
causes it. Or
And Cheryl works with Holly on the side on these problems, and we hope to find answers for sure. For sure.
uh,
And I'm going to
I
try to
wish I
get
had
at least
answers.
the pouch emphysema video out. But go ahead, Cheryl.
I wish I had answers, but
Yeah.
some of the stuff you're going through and are seeing, I've never seen before.
Yeah.
Mhm.
So I'm not sure exactly what to tell you. Uh,
Holly's going to play with it, and she's going to figure it out.
yeah,
We have to have
And I
faith.
figured it couldn't hurt to put her in the medication, but
Yep.
I mean that's all I can do is
yeah.
just see what happens. Now, one thing
I've watched
question for you
seahorses get
guys:
better. Go
now
ahead.
that Furan 2 isn't going to be sold anymore, what's a good substitute for that as far as other antibiotics?
I would say personally that we should ask Ray next week because he's never been able to get Furon 2.
Yeah, the
Um,
problem with this is the reason we settled with Furan 2 and triple sulfa is it gave us the least negative impacts. It did not reduce appetite, and it proved to be the most successful, in part because Furan 2 we could get load brine shrimp with. Losing Furan 2 is definitely setting us back, and we're going to have to basically experiment and find a new combination.
right, because Diamox treats GBD symptoms and
Yeah,
will
well,
fix the seahorse for a moment, but it doesn't treat the underlying
right.
problem.
Diamox is a carbonic anhydrase inhibitor. So all it does is reduce the inflammation. It doesn't correct the problem. It just temporarily alleviates it.
Mhm.
Diamox is not an end all. It's just a temporary solution. Usually when, like with thing 2, when we start seeing bubbles on the tail and swelling the tail, we used to think it could be fluid retention and or bacterial. Most likely, somewhere along the line, he picked up a bacterial infection.
Mhm.
And that's my concern at this point with him. You've got the Furan. If you need more, I do have some, not a lot. Lucia Arowana also has some Furan too.
Yeah, I have enough for the 10-day
Okay.
treatment. But I'm thinking that if he doesn't go through the 10-day treatment and improve, he's probably not going to.
Right.
Yeah, it's kind of like, Sandy went through 21 days of treatment and didn't make it. And so, I'm not very optimistic about the outcome just from past experience and seeing how bad he is. I'm like, well, it's probably too late for him. I hope for the best. Yeah.
Yes.
But
You know
I
what?
don't
You know what?
waste when there's only this much Furan 2 left out there. You know what? I don't want to waste it on a case that is not going to improve. You know,
Well, and I'm gonna try to get Dan in here next week too. I know he's
Yeah.
super busy, but I think he said Neoplex is a good.
and
I
see,
could
I
be
have
wrong though.
lots of other antibiotics. I have a huge supply of antibiotics. I just don't have that one. So
Right.
I'm
So
wondering, what can I
let's try to
try
get
instead?
right.
Well,
Let's try to get
we
him
just-
in here next week to give some recommendations. But I was gonna say too, what I wish instead of getting Furon 2 back on the market, I wish we could figure out what's causing it. And in my personal, and I was going to say, if there's any audio issues, guys, please let me know in the comments. But right. And Chris Carey said, just because Furon 2 isn't available normally, can it be sourced from a script from vets? Well, I can tell you my vet experience was a mess. They wanted me to bring the seahorse. And I was like, okay, I can bring him to you. And then what? I had to leave him overnight. And I was like, do you have a tank ready? No. You'd have to come to the vet, set up a tank at this exotic vet, and leave the seahorse overnight when they obviously know nothing about seahorses. So in my case, the vet was a no-go.
Well, I think the issue is I don't think you can even get it from a vet because the FDA pulled it from the market.
The FDA banned it based on what it classified as basically an ineffective antibiotic.
So in other words, I'm going to every store tomorrow to buy all the Furon 2 because it's still on our store shelves for some reason.
Then do that because I can't get it online and my stores have never sold it.
Yeah. Well, Holly, I will try to get with you tomorrow. Just remind me, because if I can get some and send it to you, I will. But again, I wish we could figure out what's causing GBD in seahorses.
Mm-hmm.
You know, if you're super extra careful, like Cheryl, she has never had these problems, or she doesn't now. And I've seen comments on message boards, saying, or on Facebook saying, GBD doesn't exist anymore. But I've had a seahorse have at least pouch emphysema, and I was going to ask a question, kind of sidelining it, but my male and female have been flirting lately. I told you guys earlier about the bubbles coming in off this one pump. We know bubbles don't cause GBD, but I wonder if bubbles from like an airline are different from bubbles from a leaky pump, because I thought he was pregnant. I really thought he was pregnant, but then he was dancing again today with her and opening his pouch. They can't open the pouch when they're pregnant, right?
Well, they can if they want to. I've seen, actually observed seahorses abort both eggs and very tiny. I mean, I'm talking a 1/16 of an inch fry. I've seen that happen.
Right.
So they
Right.
can, but this is a different situation because this male was in somebody else's household. And
no, I know it's a different situation.
okay.
And of course, Holly's not to blame. She's just trying to fix it. I just don't have the answers. So I was throwing out another
No,
question.
I don't either.
My male, I thought he was pregnant. I saw him dancing. I thought they exchanged. I didn't see it, but I thought they did because I wasn't paying attention. And now he looks pregnant. And I've got this question all the time. Is my seahorse pregnant? He's not floating. He's not swimming improperly. None of that stuff. He's acting normal and he looks pregnant. He does act brutish like he's pregnant, you know. And the other day he didn't eat. And I was like, oh my God, what's wrong? Oh my God. And then he started eating and it was fine. It was really weird. But I see him still dancing with her. And it seems to me like he's still trying to get her to do an egg exchange, but his pouch seems full all the time.
Okay. Question for you real quick. Is his pouch still full and is she starting to get fat?
She's been fat.
Okay. So it sounds like he may very well be carrying because they will dance together while the male's pregnant. He simply won't open his pouch.
Okay.
And what may be going on, it's one of the things I look for when I know a male's getting close. Is he coming out of being reclusive? Is he dancing with the female again? Are they circling together? But he's keeping his pouch closed. That's usually a dead giveaway that he's going to deliver sometime within the next 2 to 3 days.
Nice. All right. So we might have babies soon. All right. Sorry,
maybe
Holly.
a little bit, maybe 4 days. But yeah, that's pretty normal.
But if
I remember Sandy trying to court while he was giving birth.
Well, no, I was going to say though that when they stopped, when he and she never stopped eating, but he did for a day, and I was like, is he just trying to figure out pregnancy, or is there something wrong? Because the onslaught of GBD or pouch emphysema, you don't really know until, oh my gosh, he's floating. In my experience. Mm-hmm. And so I was just like doing these crazy water changes because I'm like, is he pregnant or is something wrong? And I over worry about everything.
Well, the thing is with pregnant seahorses, they get knocked up, and then after a few days, they start spending more and more time reclusive hiding, the males. Yep. The female will be off dancing with somebody else by then usually. But anyway, and what happens is usually about 3 to 4 days before they deliver, the male will come out. He'll start feeding normally again. The pair will dance together, but he will keep his pouch closed and sealed. Mm-hmm. And then the night before they deliver, they normally start shifting side to side. Mm-hmm. And then you get up in the morning, and then they start popping out fry.
So last question on my seahorses, Cheryl, is if your seahorse was acting moody as if it was pregnant, because I've seen that before, that's what I thought. But then I feel like he opened his pouch while he was dancing with her. So if his pouch remains large, but he's not floating and he's not pregnant, is that the onslaught of something?
That's normally a good indicator that they are actually pregnant.
Okay. All right. Maybe we'll
because
see some
what they'll do, typically what I look for is when the male finally stops basically staying reclusive and hiding and comes out, they'll normally do it 3 to 4 days before they deliver. They'll start dancing with the female again, it's a solicitation for her to hydrate the eggs. And normally it doesn't last more than about 4 days at the most. He delivers. And if it's a young pair, she's going to be trying to deposit her eggs in his pouch while he's trying to deliver fry.
Mm-hmm. Okay, well, I'll
That's
update you
normal.
guys next week, hopefully. And I didn't mean to cut you off, Holly. I just had to get my question out. And I wish we had more answers for you. And Cheryl, you do have new fry, right? Or you have a new baby. Did you want to share that real
I
quick?
have a new baby. I can bring
Tell
up a
us.
picture. Well, I don't know how to share my screen in this.
Down at the bottom,
Yep.
share screen. Down at the bottom, it looks like a computer.
Looks. I have a
And that's what I
mute.
should have done with Salty. I should have had him have pictures ready for you guys. Sorry.
Yeah, it's for us, like you'll see our 4 squares, and then the left's a microphone, the second one's a camera, the third one is share screen.
Oh,
Mine has a red line through it.
okay.
Yeah,
Let's see
mine
what I
does
can
too.
come up with. Entire screen. Microsoft Edge. Share system audio. Window. I don't want that window. But how do I get to what I want to find?
You have to choose. Let me see if I can look. So you have to choose the window or Chrome tab if you're in Chrome. Are you in Chrome?
Hold on.
Oh, she's sharing something. Not
There we
that.
go.
Okay. Open it up.
Wait a minute. This is no horse pair adult. Oh, come on. Okay.
And this is from Seahorse Savvy or Savvy Seahorse, right? Savvy
Okay. Can you see
Seahorses?
this?
Hang on. Is it opened?
Yep.
It's not open yet that I see.
Okay. So go back.
It says Studio Restream IO is sharing a Windows.
Okay, but close out the stream share or the screen share, and then go back in and choose the tab that actually has the picture on it. So cancel the stop streaming, and then share the window that has the actual picture.
I see what you're saying. It's not doing anything.
Did you stop sharing to begin with?
Yeah.
Okay, well, we can figure out next week. Just tell us about her.
Wait a minute. Can you see that?
I don't have anything. Sorry. Did you hit screen share again?
Hang on. Share. Nope, that's not doing it.
Okay, we'll figure it out next week. Don't worry about it. And you can always see her new baby in Seahorse Sources group or Seahorse Savvy's group.
Mm-hmm.
But tell us about her.
Let me look at one other thing real quick.
Okay. She wants to show you guys badly.
Yeah. Downloads. Hold on.
It's got to find the right file, I think.
Yeah.
I could probably even share it, honestly. Hang on.
Yeah, it's on a Facebook page.
Trying to find it myself. Give me a second. Seahorse Sources group. If you have any comments, questions in the audience, feel free while we're trying to figure this out. New software, guys. We're just trying to figure it out. All right, here. I can share it now. Here we go. Cheryl, I'm going to share your picture.
Okay.
So you just tell us, maybe. Hang on.
I hope I can see it.
Let's see. There you go. Now you tell us
my
about
baby.
Yeah.
Tell us about your
really
baby.
grainy.
It's
Look at
better
that
on
big
Facebook.
eye. She's so cute.
That was the. This is the female that Alicia sent me. And she decided that she loves my orange octopus coral, which most of my seahorses do. And this was taken today. Yesterday, she was definitely lighter. but you can see the little light stripe along her keel. And she also has white saddle markings. I thought she's really
Beautiful.
sweet.
And so she added your gang of orange seahorses?
I'm sorry?
So she added your gang of orange seahorses?
Yes.
Awesome. Well, she's
Well,
beautiful.
and let me go. Let me do one more real quick.
Okay.
Okay. Stop. No, I don't want to stop sharing. I want to share.
You might have to stop sharing to choose a new window,
Yeah.
though. So stop sharing.
I did that.
Well, and while she's trying to figure it out, the point is
Okay,
that
this one right here.
okay.
Okay,
But you have to open it and then share the actual picture
I just
is the
did.
thing.
Can you see it?
So no. So what I'm trying to say is when you have it open, so stop screen sharing, and then where the picture is open, now start screen sharing, and instead of choose the actual picture that you want to show. Try that as the tab, the Chrome tab.
Anyway, this one was taken earlier.
Okay.
But you get I love the colors on this female.
She's beautiful.
Mm-hmm.
And it's so impressive that you managed to keep those colors, because I have 2 orange and 2 yellow seahorses, and on both sides, one of the 2 turned, regular colored, which I don't mind because whatever, I don't care about seahorse color. But when you have those exotic colors, it is really cool and pretty, and they make great pictures. And so, you share all the time, Cheryl, how you keep their color, but I just think you just have it down pat.
You got to see the male I got several months ago. You want to talk about brilliant day glow yellow. I mean, I'm talking.
Wow.
You look in the tank and you immediately see this yellow sun moving across the tank. I've never seen a seahorse that yellow.
And is your main trick just to keep the decorations the color that you want them and the background blue?
I think it's a combination. Alicia and I were having this discussion. Part of it's genetics.
Mm-hmm.
Part of it is going to be tank conditions. I think part of it has to be with nutrition, because I turned a nursery system into an amphipod propagation system.
Mm-hmm.
And they get fed mice and shrimp every day, TDO, and get enrichment every day. Then the seahorses get the mice and shrimp. I think that's one piece of the puzzle.
Yeah.
I think that makes a big difference. Also, the hitch that you saw that female on, I've had that for going on 15 years. I actually have 4 of them. And every seahorse that I've ever put in a tank with one of those 4, they're orange octopus coral, just light up like Christmas trees.
Yeah.
And so
something about the color of that thing.
Yeah, exactly. And well, I'm not going to mess with it now. But I've got a picture of my old adult male combs.
Yep.
On the same hitch. The hitch is bright orange, and you can see this brilliant yellow coming out of him.
Mm-hmm. No, I agree with you, because in my case, because I use rock in most of my seahorse tanks, my seahorses tend to turn the color of rocks,
Yeah.
which is still beautiful in my personal opinion. But it definitely, for Salty, as you get the seahorses going in your facility, definitely keep in mind, if you learn how to get the color in there, we'll get with Cheryl on the side. Then you can actually tell people, hey, Don't buy for color because they typically do change. But if you set up properly for them, maybe they won't.
Well,
But you guys, listen, it's 10:03. So Cheryl, we'll pick this back up next week, okay? Because
Okay.
I want to talk about seahorse color for sure. Hang out afterwards if you want to chat afterwards. I'm sorry if I cut any of you off, but I'm trying to limit these things and I want to figure out how to get us on Instagram too. But Salty, I want to thank you again so much for coming. Good luck this week. We can't wait to see your new human fry pictures.
Human fry pictures.
And
I love it. We're having a baby sea person.
Yes. And I'm sure the baby will help eventually. But I think Salty's got us muted. But I'm going to go ahead and call it, you guys, because it's 2 hours running now. But we will be back next week. If you have any questions about seahorses, tanks, or anything else, we're here for you. Join us every Wednesday at 8
Where do we
p.m.
send baby stuff?
Baby, oh, let's not do that live, okay? Salty, did you want to say bye?
Yep.
Or
Good night,
say
everyone.
anything? Okay, everybody else say cheers and we'll chat afterwards. Cheers.
Good night. I need to go. I need to go feed babies.
The wine is gone. Good night, everyone.